newly married, the marriage is the priority, right? Like there's very few distractions. I remember when we were first married, and now we look back and we're like, I remember being like, we thought we were busy. Like I remember Lindsay being like, I was too busy to do this, and now she's like, once we had kids, she was like, what was I saying? Like, no, I wasn't too busy. And so you're laying the foundation, I think, which is important. Like it's just us two, and we're building us together. And because us is the most important relationship here on earth, right?
That's right. And that's what I think of the vow of priority, that your spouse is now the most important human relationship that you have. Now, before you get married, it's your relationship with your mom, relationship with your dad. But then when you get married, then that's you leave
and cleave, which is hard for some families, and it's hard for some mothers to pass that torch.
It's hard. It's hard to let go.
It's not always good. Was that hard for you? Because you've done it. I mean,
it was. I mean, it was tough.
Yeah,
but excited for them because they have their whole lives ahead of them, and
but still tough not to be
the goal.
Not to be the.
Yeah, not to be the man in Julia's life. She's got somebody else now who he takes care of everything. Like he's providing for her, protecting her, and it's a beautiful thing. Right now, the big thing, number 2 prayer request for me is for them to get pregnant, have some grandkids. Now they just bought a house in Monroe.
Oh, so they're close.
They're close. Yeah,
that's amazing.
They're like 20 minutes from our house.
That's perfect. So they got built-in babysitters.
Super cool. Yeah, that's what we talked about. So we're excited about that, and Jennifer's really pushing heavy for the grandkids. But vow of priority. So Jesus, your number 1 priority, but next to him, your spouse is your priority. And I talked about this in the message, is that God has called men to lay our lives down for 2 things. We're to lay our lives down for Christ, and we're to lay our lives down for our spouse.
Yep.
We're to love our spouse as Christ loved the church, and he laid his life down for her. So we talked about in week 2 there on the truck, the traditional wedding vows, and then we talked about the 4 different vows, the vow of priority, which we already hit. The second thing we talked about was the vow of purity, which is a pretty important vow. Let me read Hebrews 13:4.
Let's say read it.
Marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. And I wrote, adultery is a sin, which I think everybody knows that. It's one of it's the number 7 on the top 10 of the commandments. But I'm not sure these days.
Yeah, and also what adultery is, because according to the Bible, when you look on another woman with lust, you're committing adultery. Mm-hmm. So I think
Jesus raised the standard.
Yes,
he raised the bar, and there's all kind of warnings in the book of Proverbs about not sleeping with another man's wife. It will cost you your life. But then Jesus said, even if you look at a woman lustfully, you've already committed adultery with her.
And I think the premise of what that means. Like it's pretty cut and dry. But like and that's one thing I would say that you see as you get older that you get frustrated with, is just the people aren't as happy with their marriages, and it's easier to, like, instead of working on certain things and being like, you're like, because marriage or divorce should be off the table. Mm-hmm. Like it's off the table. And I think if we take that off the table in our marriages, that's not an option. Like, and now we start fighting and we start working on these things that bother us, and we talk through these things. I think communication is huge. I think we have a chance to be a lot more successful, and we have a chance to be in a spot where we're happy and we're content, and we don't need anything else, and we don't need to look for anything else. And so I think that marriage is hard, man. It's hard. I think it's one of the hardest things that we'll have to do on this earth. Like it'll be up and down. There'll be seasons that are phenomenal and seasons that you're like, okay, we're just getting by. Like we're roommates.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's okay. I mean, that's going to happen in your marriage. So I think, but building that strong structure and foundation before you add the minivan, before you add, someone else to the mix.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of enjoying the stage of life that you're in. So like if you're single, like Joelin's single, I mean, enjoy life. Go play disc golf, go hang out with your buddies, watch SportsCenter. Like you've got all this time in the world. And Jolin, he's a good example of being single in ministry. So he he can go hang out with all the kids. They can Wednesday nights they're going out to dinner, after student ministry, and they can go do whatever
you want,
all the
whenever
flexibility,
you want, which is great.
I mean, he can go to the kids' sports games and
enjoy that
and
while
hang
you got
out.
it.
And then when you get married and you don't have kids, like enjoy being married and not having kids. I think people so quickly want to rush to the next season of life.
And by the way, we do that in high school too now with our kids. Like we're looking at college.
You're already
forget that crap, man.
Enjoy high school.
And here's a different way to say it, and this is Bill Walton. Live your age. Like live your age. He did a book with Gene Wojciechowski, and I remember that's one of the quotes is live your age. You should live your age, man.